Ryan here, OJS Media. So you bought yourself a Syma X5C and you managed to put it into one of these. Okay, now that we're back on the ground, a good starting place is just to figure out which motor exactly burned out. An easy way to do that is just to try to spin them with your finger and see which ones won't move. Now that we've got that done, you want to mark the gear underneath the motor that is bad so when we disassemble it we know which one we're removing for sure. The next step in disassembly is going to be to remove the camera. We're going to have to twist a little bit just to get the ears out of the grooves that hold the camera in place. Once you have the camera removed, you just simply want to disconnect the battery and slide it out of its holder as well. Now that we've removed the battery, turn the drone over. We're going to remove the blades, but be sure to set the clockwise and counterclockwise ones apart from each other. This will help in the reassembly later. Now that you have the blades removed, flip it back over and you're going to want to remove the landing gear. Now to do that, all you need to do is pull on each base. Now underneath you're going to find 4 screws, one in each corner, that are actually holding on the cover. You'll find 2 additional screws where the battery connects to the base. On each leg of the drone, you'll find 2 screws just before the 3 screws holding on the motor assembly. You'll need to remove these 2 screws on each of the 4 legs, but only need to remove the 3 screws on a motor that's being replaced. Now that you have the screws removed, you can flip it over to remove the cover. If you haven't done so already, now would be a good time to remove the blade guard from the motor assembly that we're going to take apart. To take apart the motor assembly, all you need to do is squeeze both sides and it should pop off of the cover. At this point, press gently on the bottom of the motor assembly to remove it from the leg. To remove the motor from the motor assembly, all we need to do is to push on the small gear that we marked earlier in the video. You do have 2 options on how to repair this. You can splice the wires together or you can solder from the board, but if you're going to take the soldering approach, please ensure that your wires are long enough. Now that your wires are free from the circuit board, please pull the wires through the motor assembly. Now slide your new motor into the motor assembly. Be sure that you have matching colors, as the black and white and the red and blue are different motors. You'll want to feed the wires through the motor assembly the same way they were originally to ensure that they don't get tangled during use. Now that you've ensured that your wires are long enough and you are putting the proper motor in, you can begin to solder your wires back to the board. Be sure to place them in the same position as the old ones were. In this particular example, black was on the outside. Now that you've successfully resoldered the board, you want to check for proper placement of your motor assembly. Once you have the motor assembly properly popped back on, you're going to want to also add the top cover. Now all you need to do is put your screws back in. The longer of the screws will go in the legs of the base, while the shorter screws will cover the assembly head underneath the landing gear as well as near the battery. Now that the screws are in, place your landing gear back in. With the rest of it reassembled, we can feel free to add the battery and put the camera back on. Please remember to angle the camera so that the ears will slide into the grooves. Now with the rest of the drone reassembled, all we need to do is put our blades back on. Now with everything reassembled, you should be good to go and be back in the air.